Okay, today I'd like to finish the next step of the pot that I started the other day. I've kept it in plastic, and now I've unwrapped it, patted it a little bit, so that it's ready to go. It's still a little moist, and I needed it to be moist because I wanted to do a texture demonstration. I've got a bunch of different tools here. I've got a fork and a spoon from before, and I really like the ends of this fork and the spoon. And I thought doing an imprint on the clay using that end of the spoon might be kind of nice. I got some stuff on here from another clay, so let me pick that off so that it doesn't stick on there. Kind of brush that off because it's not what I want. Dig that out. I have a feeling that after this dried that would disappear. I can paint over that too, so I'm just going to leave that be for now. And I'm just going to keep going around with the end of the spoon. And leave this imprint on the ridge up here, as you can see. And that's all you need to do for some of your texture. This clay is funny stuff, and I don't think it's going to carve very well. I mean, you could try carving it. If you were going to carve it, you'd probably want it to dry just a tiny bit more. As it is right now, I think it's not going to carve. I think it's just going to get all scrunched up and not respond very well to carving. You can really do an imprint though. And this is how early potters mark their pots a lot of times. There's a bunch of pots from early Japan that were made with rope wrapped around them. And you can still see all the rope marks. They're quite nice. Okay, so now I'm going to go in. I got a screw head here. I'm going to put that in the center for my decoration. And the screw head's really nice. It's a Phillips screw, and it's leaving a little cross mark on there that I kind of like too. So that's nice. And you can use whatever you have handy and whatever you want for imprinting here. And remember, the bronze bells and the bronze vessels from the Zhou dynasty were record-keeping devices. That's where they wrote their stories. And what I want you to do is give me a story on the side of your pot in one form or another. Right now, these circles and the other marks are just a decoration. It's not really a story. I also have this tool here that would do a nice imprint on the pot. The story part comes from images in our pots. I want you to put some images on the side of your pot, or patterns, either one. But I want you to be able to understand if it's a pattern. I want to understand why it's a pattern. You can do a decoration around the top like I did, but then I want a story, or an image, or an animal, or something on the pot that's significant to you. And it's your personal understanding of what it is, but you're going to have to explain to me a little bit about why you chose that image, okay? Now I've got some drawings here of my own that I've been working on. I've got this little horse drawing from a long time ago. I've been working with images of two different things. I've got this deer image that I did. This is kind of a deer format. And I also have, this is kind of faint, but it's images of a branch being grafted onto another branch. And so I'm liking the idea, and the deer image that I've been working with, the horns become a tree. And so that's something I've been thinking about a lot lately, is the deer, because it's it's not a fragile animal, but it's an animal that scares easily. And I've been using it as a metaphor, or a symbol, to represent the times that we're living in, because the times are kind of unnerving right now, and I see the deer as being a real good symbol for us living in this time. So I'm going to do an image of a deer on mine. You've got your paint. I have some really nice browns here. I'm going to open the paint. Open it carefully. You can tear these apart into individual containers and rip them apart, or cut them apart, or you can just open them all at once. I'm going to open them at once because I think I'm going to need a lot of these other colors here. And then with your brush, and I'm going to need to get some water, so let me get some water here. And I just happen to have a water container right here. So that will work. You're going to want a rag too, okay? So get yourself a rag and your water container, which I just happen to have here because it's my workspace. This is my water container. And then you're going to want to dip your brush in your water and then decide, go in. I'm going to actually do a black outline to start to kind of draw on my pot a little bit. And see if I can't work that deer head idea on the pot. And keep your drawing available so that you can work from it, because it'll help you to see where you're going with this. And I'm going to do this really quickly, just so you get a sense of where I'm going with this piece. I've got a deer head here. I'm actually going to put 4 deer head all around my pot. Your assignment is going to be to do the pot decoration, but you're going to have to show me your sketch, your initial sketch for where you're going with it, okay? And I'm just going to go in now and work on one of these images, but I would put them all the way around. For this demo though, I'm only going to do a couple. I've got this really nice brown. I'm going to go in and start working And the nice thing here is it's wet and I can do some shading. What I'd like you to do is make sure there's no bare clay, okay? So your whole pot is going to get decorated. Have fun with this. This is kind of fun stuff here. If you get to a point and you just really, I'll come back and finish this, but suppose I did this and I just really don't like it, just take it out. Go in, moisten it, and wipe it out, okay? My inclination is to keep going on to work this through, so I'm going to work on this. Actually, let's go on. I'm going to use some of these other colors. And see how when you paint over your texture, how it picks that up too. A leaf texture would have been very nice on this whole pot, and I could still go in and do that. Just go back and get a leaf texture. I'm going to go in with some blue up here. Have fun with these paints. These paints are pretty nice. If you feel more comfortable about it, let your pot dry completely before you paint it. I didn't feel like I could do that because I wanted to show you imprinting and painting in the same time. And quite frankly, I really like this painting on the wet clay. I think it's pretty remarkable actually the way the paint works, because you can do a lot of shading. I'm going to go back in here. I would like some white. So I'm going to put a highlight right down the center of the nose. I'm going to highlight over one of the eyes, which isn't in yet. And I think I'll put a highlight there. I'm going to pull some of this green, is going to become a lot lighter colored. Okay, so we'll do that. Lighten up that. Let's blend this in. This highlight, this highlight. And I know you can't see them as highlights yet, but just give me a minute here and they will be. The nice thing, what I'm doing here with this black is really powerful. I'm trying to kind of take some of the power of the black away by working the background, okay? So I'm working the background to try to blend that black in, and then I can go back in and add. And actually this is just too powerful, so I'm going to take some of that out and see how nicely I can just pull that out. I can go back in now. I can go in with this tan color and add the deer's ear, okay? And I can add some of that up there too, okay? So let's get those eyes in so that this has kind of a sensitivity to to bean. Let's get the nose in down here. And now you can kind of see how the highlight is working a little bit too. I've got a darker brown here. I'm going to go in with that. You might, if you have brushes of your own, you might want to use them too. This one's not too bad, but it doesn't hold its point very well because it's not a really expensive brush. So if you had a more expensive brush, feel free to use that. And now I don't like this puffy side over here around the face. I'm going to pull this right out by going in and working the background. I'm going to go in and just kind of put this in there, and that'll narrow that face down and make it look more like a deer instead of a cow. I've noticed when I do deer heads, it's real easy to make them look like goats or cows. They are quite slender. They have big ears too. And actually I'm going to try to put a bottom part to the ear on it here. And I'm trying to go through this quickly so that you can just kind of get the sense of where I'm going with it. But there should be a bottom part to this ear. Let's get that in there. These paints are really nice on this. It's just great. When you get done with your paint, save it too. This will be wonderful stuff. You got that sketchbook, you could even paint in your sketchbook. This is good paint. But see how I'm giving a shape to my ear here? Okay? And then I'm actually going to try to put in a neck and the body here. And again, this looks weird because what happened all of a sudden is it popped forward. So now how do I pull that in back again? You pull things back by giving them shadow. So I'm going to pull that brown, visually pull it back, or that tan, into the body of the deer by making it darker. So this becomes now you don't have to do an animal. I just happen to be working with this image a lot lately, and I decided it would be what I did for my demonstration. If you felt like you wanted to do an image of something else in your life, if you want to do a self-portrait, that's fine. An animal's good. But I want it to be something that you're connected to, that you think about. And I'm going to ask you questions about it. So you can't just come in and do this, that, and the other thing and have it work to be, that looks like a giraffe. What I don't want to see is a haphazard, slop together something, and then you're trying to convince me that it really has meaning to you, okay? So make sure that it's something that matters to you, because I'm going to ask you why it matters. And this is not necessarily the easiest thing, painting on that. See how I've started to have a neck here? Deer's necks are really broad, and I think it didn't read like a deer, partly because it wasn't broad enough. But here I'm bringing this in. I'm going to redefine the background here so that you can see the mark for where the neck is. So I pulled, see how things move forward and back depending on if they're light or dark? That's a real interesting part of painting, I think, and color. But I've just helped outline the deer now. And it still is kind of an odd shape. It's not deer-like, it's still giraffe-like. So what I need to do is bring that down broader still. And now it has that deer quality. That highlight on the nose is nice, but it's a little too aggressive, and it's not blended in enough, so I'm going to go in and work that a little bit. And now it really is starting to have that deer character, and my brush is really mangled here because it couldn't hold the point very well. If I were to continue with this, I'd probably want to stop and fuss with my brush. I'm going to put blue sky in here, or blue I mean, and representing sky in my mind. Another thing you can do is once you've painted, you can go back in. I could go back in after I paint it and scratch back through. And that's kind of nice too. I really like that actually. So you can scratch back through your paint and add a visual texture. That's visual texture, remember? Talked about visual texture? Your eye sees it as texture. Okay, I'll have to say I'm not real fond of those marks I put in earlier. I'm going to leave them because I don't have time to redo this whole thing right now in this demonstration, but I'm not real fond of those. So if this were something that I were keeping, at this point I'd probably go in and try to get rid of those, work them out a little bit. But now you can see how this deer has become part of the pot. I mean, it's part of the image on the pot, right? I'm going to go back in and put the horns in. And like I said, on mine, the horns on the images I've been doing become foliage. So it's like a tree coming out of the deer's head. That's the image I've been working with a lot lately. It's about growth. You know, when you have anything coming out of the head like that, it's about growth. I used to do trees coming out of people's heads too, as a metaphor for growth. I like that image a lot, but it fits really well with the deer. I want to get a little more highlight up here on this ear. Nice color there. I'm going to stop and open up the orange because I really want orange right now. And I just want to be able to put a mark of orange across that head. So we'll stop and get the orange. Actually, I think I'll do red because this brown is such a red-orange. There we go. That's a good idea. Red-orange. And I'm going to put a mark of that across the ear here to help shape that. And another one here. And that really pops it out a little bit down here too. Will help pop this out a little bit and start giving you, see how things move around. So play with your color. See what you can do with blending. I need a little bit of a black outline here. Down the side yet, I just lost it and I had it put back in. And then I'm going to call it quits. I think you have a good idea of where this heads from here. So think about texture. Think about what it is you want to put on your pot. Think about scratching through again. You know, I could scratch through if I want some highlight on that eye. I could put a little bit of a white highlight on the eyes. I could scratch out the outline of the ear. That really starts to define things too here. So I'm doing that. You can draw on it. You could draw on it with a pencil too if you wanted. Okay? I'm going to go in and like I said, I'm not real pleased with those marks I put in earlier. If this were something I were going to keep, and I might go back in, I really like this deer head, I might go back in and change this background. And if I were going to do that, if I wanted to get rid of my marks that I had earlier, just go back in with your tools. Remember how we used that spoon? I'm going to go ahead and wipe the spoon off. And go back in and take those marks out. Dampen your clay a little bit and take any marks out that you don't like. See, I'm getting rid of them. Okay? If I'm going to get rid of them where the paint is, now look at this. This is really a nice, isn't that beautiful? Look what you can do. Oh, isn't that nice? So that's good too, or you can start moving your paint around. Be sure your hands are clean and be sure you wash real well before you eat. You can't use these paints and eat too. They're not good for that. They're not poison, they're non-toxic, but still it's not a good idea. Remember from our glaze lesson, color comes from metals. It does in glazes, it does in paint too. That's where color comes from. In light it doesn't. Light's different, like the rainbow. It comes from the way the light plays through water. But wants to pigments like paint and ink and glazes, it's metals. And we'll talk about that. The Chinese understood that well. They started having a glaze called a celadon, which is a real soft green, usually. Sometimes it can be blue though, depending, but it's iron. Iron that's making the green. That's what's going on in the glaze to make the pot green is iron. Copper can also make things go green. Copper can make things go red, like a copper penny. I'm going to go back in now. I really like this idea of scratching through. I'm going to put one more little layer of blue back here in the background so that I can scratch through. I got rid of that texture, and I'm glad I did it. That wasn't really working for me. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into these antlers and create a drawing of the antler, because I'm having difficulty with this brush getting a lot of detail, but it doesn't matter because this is giving me a beautiful detail. And again, it doesn't look so much like a horn as it does like a tree. Okay, so that's it for today. I probably will finish this. I'm probably going to go around. I might do another deer head on the other side, or work around. Maybe I'll just do a scene. Maybe I will come into on the other side having a house. Okay, or an airplane or something, depending what my narrative is. And it can be an abstract, metaphorical narrative. It doesn't have to be in a linear way. It doesn't even have to necessarily make literal sense, but it can still be a narrative. Okay, so figure out what it is you want your narrative to be about, how you're going to use, what are the images that are going to help you talk about what you want to talk about, and go ahead and do your pots. When you're done, be sure you cover your snap your covers back on your paint. These are good paints. These are really good paints. So this is a lot of paint and a lot of color. It should last you a long time. You have extra clay that you cut off that wad that you had. Make beads out of them. Make little things out of them and paint them. You just can't eat out of them, but you sure could do. You could make jewelry out of them. You could flatten them out, paint them, make little pins, make pendants. You could do whatever. The big piece that's in the other bag, don't touch that yet because we're going to be using that for something else. But you have that chunk left over. Go ahead and fool with it, okay? Thank you. And if you have any questions, email me or call me if you get stuck on this. I know there's some new kids in the class right now that don't have their stuff yet. It's coming. I will get it in the mail today. So you'll be able to have your clay. Both demonstrations will be posted in the new assignment. So you can all just keep going, keep working. And see what you can do to come up with this beautiful vessel with the pictures on the side of it. Okay? Thank you.